Hello, 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 hello. Are you ready for some podcasting? Welcome to In the Closet with. It's once again Pride Month, and this year I wanted to celebrate with my fellow creatives. Throughout June, the stream will be guested by a variety of people where we talk about the queer experience. Today I'm joined by EO, they, them, also known as Iana Meisen on Twitter. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I mean, not really. I really hate introductions. But yes. I'm EO. I like drawing. I'm a freelance artist. I work mostly on book covers and concept art, stuff like that. And I think my other major character trait is that I'm really into plants. I love plants. I love drawing plants. I will always find a way to insert some sort of greenery into any illustration I'm working on. And I have lots of plants in my home as well. My whole work desk is pretty much just 3 big plants right now. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel you on the plant thing. I'm the same way where I really enjoy plants. I wish I was better at keeping them alive.
That has been my problem my whole life. It's what I've gotten a bit better at recently. So yeah. I feel like that's such a thing that speaks to me, like having a queer family of animals, plants, and like partners. That's just like, I'm into that.
Because you're originally from Finland, right?
Yes.
Do you feel like growing up in the cold north also makes us extra bad at taking care of plants?
Yeah, that could be. We don't really get to have the season in the summer where you can actually have plants outside is pretty short. So, and also I feel like indoor plants need a lot more sun than you can provide them reasonably. So it probably doesn't help.
Yeah, no, I very much agree. I've had the same experience, and I live quite far south, and even here I struggle with getting enough sunlight for my plants, and during winter they're just depressed.
Yeah, I feel them, honestly. No, getting enough sunlight for your plants and for yourself, it's a struggle up there.
It really is. Do you feel like northern people are very much impacted by seasons, just like plants?
I definitely am. Living in Germany right now is actually been amazing for my seasonal depression because it's so much lighter here, and you can actually see the blue sky sometimes during winter too, which does a lot for me. So definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something most people won't understand until they've experienced winter
Mm.
in Northern Europe, like Northern Europe, and just how deprived of sunlight we are for some places like 6 months.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, let's dive into the first
Hmm.
question. What was your first crush and or fascination that challenged the expectations of society?
Yeah, for me, it was a pretty a common thing, I guess, of falling for your best friend. I was 13 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I it was what made me also realize that I had crushes on girls since I was a kid, as long as I could remember.
Mm.
But I never recognized it as that because we definitely didn't have any sort of education in school that would have touched upon it at all. It was just not something that existed. And I didn't see it on TV or anything, so it just wasn't even an option in my mind. And that kind of made me realize that, oh, wait, it was actually pretty stupid because it took me a long while to actually start accepting it. And I had this whole moment of just, I was laying in bed, just doing the gay pining as you do. And then suddenly I just sit up and I'm like, something just clicking in my head. I'm like, damn, I'm really gay actually. And yeah, that made me start looking back on things and realizing that, yeah, a lot of things actually make sense when you know, just consider that.
Yeah, there's this whole recalibrating of your past self that you suddenly have to go through when you have that eye opener.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these things that you just thought didn't make any sense. Like, why am I so weird? Why am I not interested in the same things as these people? And why do I think this way? And then suddenly it all makes sense. Like, oh yeah, well, that'll do it.
Yeah, it truly is like finding yourself a second time.
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to ask because this isn't the first time that I hear, to my big interest, that Finland doesn't use gendered titles.
Yeah, we don't have he or she or anything like that. We have one pronoun that's han, and we actually don't even use that for people most of the time. It's only used in formal speech. In every other type of situation, we call everything just the Finnish equivalent of it. So
Oh,
people, animals, plants, inanimate objects, everything is just it. And that's just what I personally vibrate really hard. So I'm not really connected with um, gendered pronouns in other languages because it's not something that I grew up with. It's not something that I associate with gender that a lot. It just feels like a hassle to me. It just feels like a lot of extra work, especially now that I've been learning German and it's a very gendered language
yeah,
outside of pronouns too. Like words have genders, and it's been a lot for me to take in and learn because
yeah.
that's completely lacking in my native language.
Yeah, I was gonna comment that because I personally don't speak German, but I have a German partner and several German friends, and I too have been introduced to just how gendered German is, and I was thinking, oh boy, that's got to be such a change coming from Finnish to German, then where everything is gendered.
Yeah, it really is.
But what I wanted to ask, like in the same vein as you not having like gender titles in Finnish, is do you feel like that at all affects how Finnish people approaches queerness in a way?
I wonder. I feel like I haven't been outside of Finland enough to be able to compare it in a way, but I can definitely tell that like other Finnish queer people that I've talked to, it's like a very common thing for us that we don't feel connected to the gendered pronouns and don't really care. A lot of Finnish Discord servers, for example, that I meet, pretty much everybody's just like, yeah, any pronouns, don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I mean it fits me very well. Maybe it's caused by that. I don't know what the correlation between them is, but I personally feel most comfortable as unlabeled as possible, both with sexuality, gender, everything. I just don't really want to get any labels as much as possible. Maybe it has something to do with that, or maybe that's just why I vibe with it so hard, but I really like it. And I also like how it comes with this sort of equality because Finnish native religions used to be really nature based, that everyone is like equal,
Mm-hmm.
plants, animals, people. And I think I have heard that that's the origin of why everything was just referred with the same pronoun. There wasn't any need to um, differentiate people from the other nature and life. So I just really I like that personally, and it's what I've grown up with, so it fits with me.
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful. I have to say, as probably a lot of other Scandinavian people, my biggest introduction to Finland is of course the Moomins.
Yeah.
And even thinking about both the Moomins and the creator, I'm probably gonna butcher the name compared to what you say, but Tove Jansson. Um, like she's or was obviously very gender fluid in my eyes. Like even as a kid, when I saw photos of her, I was like, oh, she's so cool because she's just 100% herself was always the feeling that I got. And I mean, she's one person out of all of Finland, but it really shaped my view of Finland being like a really cool place where you could just like be your own person in a way where gender wasn't necessarily something that came in your way the same way it does in other countries where like pronouns are so much more heavily weighed in on. But I don't know if there's anything to that, or if that's just me reading way too into Moomin and Tove Jansson.
She's definitely amazing, and I just love the vibe that Moomins have as a whole. I feel like it also has a lot of just really good stuff. I mean, there's obviously like the main character and Nuuska Muikkunen, who Snufkin,
Mm-hmm.
who just have this really deep bond. And there's just so many good vibes about it that I think resonated a lot with a lot of queer people as well. Obviously, being created by a queer creator as
Mm-hmm.
well. And I personally don't know that many Finnish trans people, so I don't know how they would feel about all of that and what their experience is with that. But the ones that I have talked to have kind of similar feelings about that. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of difficulties that, especially on like legal levels, that people have to go through that. I'm pretty sure that Finland is pretty bad with as well, but what place isn't, honestly, still.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like, oh yeah, Norway is so progressive, and then this year we managed to come up with some dumbass anti-trans rules, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
really, in 2022, dude? Where in Norway we are this year celebrating our 50th anniversary of it being legal, being openly gay, and then that's how they choose to celebrate that, by just like doubling down on difficulty of accessing treatment for trans people. I'm just sitting here like, not that it should happen ever, but why does it have to happen on the anniversary year?
Yeah, I think it's important because we all constantly see this stream of news from, the USA and how awful things are happening there, to also remember that there's still a lot of work to do in Europe as well, and all of our countries, to hopefully try and make things better for all
Absolutely.
queer people, and especially right now for trans people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is, as you say, it is a very European thing, and I am 100% guilty of shitting all over America because they are so not progressive. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's not like I'm blind to how slow development is here as well, or how we even regress sometimes, because sadly you often see this kind of ebb and flow and shifts in like the political nature of countries, where if one country gets very conservative, a lot of countries follow that conservative wave, and then you ride that out and then you go into more liberal waves again. It is a very like human nature thing. And right now we are, if not hopefully at the tail end, we're still kind of in the middle of a very conservative wave. And I very much agree with you that it's so important to, like, as much as we like to shit on America over here, we also have to not turn a blind eye to the issues in Europe as well.
Yeah, and it's not like any of the progress that's made is just like stuck in stone. Then we've seen that they can very well also take rights away. So
Yeah.
it's important to not give in to that some people like to say, well, you already have these and these rights, why are you still complaining? Like, they can easily be taken away, and there's still a lot that needs to be done. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And without going necessarily too much into, we've seen that in even European countries these last couple of years, how those very rights have been revoked. So
Yep.
it's not like we are immune to that same kind of landscape over here, which is terrifying to say the least, because Europe likes to think it's so progressive, and then suddenly something like that happens, and we're like, oop, it's a wake up call for sure.
Yeah, very.
Oh well, let's jump on to the next. What's the most positive impact being queer has had on you?
um For me, as a kid and a teen, I was very, just in general, insecure about feeling different, because I didn't have any other friends that were queer or would, grow up to be queer. So I was pretty much just surrounded by straight friends. And obviously, we were different in a lot of ways, especially when, people start having crushes and talking about their relationships. I just had no, like, I couldn't relate to any of that in a lot of ways. And it I was just really desperate to try and feel like everyone else, just have the same experiences. There were other reasons why I felt like an outcast often and couldn't have the same kind of experiences as other people. So that kind of just built up on it. And I said, can't I just have this thing that I can share with other people and be similar? But obviously it didn't work. And when I could accept that I'm just different in this way, and realize that there's so many other people who are also different in that same way, that I am similar to them. Being different doesn't always mean that you're, separate from others. It's just that you're different from some people, but similar to some other people. And also being different to those people is fine, and you can learn from them and they can learn from you, and it doesn't make you any worse. That it definitely was a struggle at the beginning, but it kind of turned out to be a good thing in the end. So I'm glad about that.
Do you feel like thanks to the internet that you find or found more like-minded people throughout the years?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the expectation that the coolest people you could have in your life would just happen to be next doors is not realistic. I think it's great that you can these days just meet people from pretty much anywhere. And of course, it's great if you can meet up with them and you can also see them in real life. But I think even just online friends, just knowing there's people you can connect with is really important. And that's, I always felt this weird when older people are just complaining about younger people being on their cell phones and computers as if they're talking to robots or something. You're actually just communicating with your friends and sharing your experiences and bonding.
Yeah, but I guess in a way I can see it from their perspective when it like communicating through devices has for the longest time been very much youth centric. So if you're an
Mm.
older person, you don't necessarily have the insight to understand just how readily available the entire world is at your feet through that device. So for my parents, for example, who are quite of the older generation, they too had this issue of me growing up and being very much on the internet and understanding that I wasn't just sitting there, quote unquote, wasting my time. I was sitting there making friends and connections and stuff like that. And I think it's just in the later years now when I'm in my 30s and I tell them, hey, I have to get home because I'm playing games with friends tonight over the internet, that they're like, okay, that makes sense. Like, it's not weird to them anymore like it was when I was a
Yeah.
teenager. So I think it just took them much longer to understand what a social tool it can be and how much it can bring friendship and kinship into your life.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be great for um, the future older generations that are used to that, because I know that currently it's a big issue with old people that they're really lonely because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to, get out of the house for a lot of them, and maybe they don't have friends alive anymore and all that. So I think it would be really cool if the next generation of old people can still connect with each other through phones and online and whatever technology we may have. So I think that's going to be a good thing,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I'm tempted to even say that, like, I hesitate to thank COVID for anything, but thanks to the pandemic, that even the current older generation has been ushered a little bit into that digital era, because suddenly that is how they had to even communicate with their families and stuff when we had to keep separated. So I think in that regard that the pandemic actually brought the digital world a little closer to the elderly.
Yeah, for sure. That's also a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask, because obviously you're an artist, and if there's anyone
Mhm.
out there who hasn't checked out your insanely phenomenal art, um, were you relatively alone about growing up as a creative in your area?
Yeah, I think I was always kind of the weird art kid, kind of sitting in a corner doing my own thing. I had some friends that were also artists. That was kind of only way I could connect with people back then. If we were both artists, we would just, sit together and draw and bond over that. But at school, it was often pretty hard. I also happened to, because of where I lived, I went to a math and athletics school. So it was
Mm.
people that were not, didn't have any of the same interest as me. So yeah, art was both maybe a bit of the reason why I was more antisocial, because I spent all of my efforts just drawing and trying to get better, but also a comfort because I was more introverted also, and I always had art there for me.
Do you feel like art has been a tool for you to express yourself in a way?
Yeah, definitely. It's the main way for me. I'm not very good at expressing myself to words, though I'm definitely working on it, trying to get better at it. But art has always been the main way that I feel like I can most truly put my feelings into it and show them. And it's been really great just noticing that they've been going through to people. Because for a long time, I was just, I was never the best artist in my friend group, let's just say. It was a long road. I wasn't like a super talented kid or anything. So I didn't really have anyone look at my art for a long time. So it's just been really amazing that people have been liking my art and just commenting so many great things and being so nice and tell me what my art has made them feel, which is the most important thing to me.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that people really enjoy your art now. At least I know that I do. I think I found your art sometime last year, and I was just so incredibly floored because you're touching on that kind of thing that I personally really admire, which is first it's very heavily detailed, which I'm just like, my God, that must take so long. But also the the themes that you have in your art is both so soft and tender, but also so raw and almost like a little horror-y in some of the themes, like a little horror-centric, and
Yeah,
it's just so beautiful. It's like it's just such a great mix of all the things that I love in art.
that's good. That's kind of the vibe I'm going for. It's really just like it's all coming straight from me. All the personal pieces that I make that I put online that are not customer works or anything, it's really just what I want to draw and what I want to show. And I love to just leave them a bit open to read. I always love hearing what other people like think of when they look at my art. What do they think is the story behind it? And there's always someone who has like a cooler story than what I originally had in mind, and it's really cool.
Yeah, your art definitely has a heavy influence of storytelling, which is like I adore that. And from the other Finnish artists that I know of, that seems to be a thing that you like Finnish artists gravitates towards. Do you know if there's a reason behind that, or if I'm just generalizing?
I wonder, there's definitely a similar kind of vibe to Finnish art that I get. Like, I can often tell if I see a Finnish artist work. I just get that Finnish vibe from them. Maybe it has something to do with the culture or the um, just there's some sort of like mysticity, whatever that word is, some kind of mystic vibe to Finland that I feel like our long summer nights and the nature and the native religions, culture, everything. There's just something kind of magical about it that I always felt connects the Finnish art as well,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, no, it really does. It really does because even though Norway and Finland is a little different, we are somewhat on the same height on
Yeah.
the globe. So especially what you're saying about the summer, that is one thing that really inspires me too. Is just there is truly something mystical about northern summers because they're relatively bright and warm despite it being like 3 a.m. and you can get this like beautiful fog early in like the twilight zone. And yeah, no, we in Norwegian we have an expression that says that it's oh my god, I'm struggling to translate this because if we're saying it's ogre like, that sounds so dumb in English, but what we mean is that it's the ogre hour when you can see trolls and ogres in the forest. It's like the
Yeah.
mystical hour, and I think
Yeah.
that's very very accurate.
Yeah, for sure. It's like just this, it kind of looks like a day, but you still feel that it's night. It's a really weird mix of things. I love it. There's nothing better than just summer nights in the like Nordic region.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's definitely the time of year where I completely obliterate my sleeping habits because I just want to experience those late nights.
Yep.
Alrighty. What has been the most important queer? No, sorry. Did I ask this already? No, I didn't. Right? No, I didn't. Holy moly, I am falling apart. What has been the most important queer representation in media to you? Fictional or real person or both?
Yeah, I was really thinking about this one for a long time because I'm sure there's been some, but there's nothing that really stands out to me or feels like, yeah, this really impacted me. As like growing up, I don't feel like there really was much, at least because, internet wasn't a thing as much. You
Mm.
pretty much just as a kid watched the TV and the children's shows back then, well, definitely didn't have any queer representation there.
You.
So yeah, I can't really think of any. I think I have one relative in my family who is queer, and I think that was the most kind of impactful thing for me. Nothing really from the media that comes to mind, unfortunately.
No, that's super fair. It's I've had other people answer where the characters haven't necessarily been queer themselves, but they've like made you feel empowered or something. It can be something along those lines too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a queer person, but something that meant something to you as a queer person.
Yeah. Well, there was one video game character that I had a crush on when I was like 7 years old, so I
Oh,
guess that counts. Uh, I don't know if you're familiar with the Kingdom Hearts series.
oh yeah, I am.
Yeah, I had the hugest crush on Namine.
That's interesting. I feel like everyone always went for. Is his name Axel, the red-haired one?
I guess, but she's the art girl and she's cute. I was just like a little me was turned like she's adorable. I like her.
Did you see yourself somewhat in that character, or was it just like an affection towards her?
I wonder. That's that's also the struggle of life goals or wife goals, how it goes. But yeah, I definitely related to her and also just thought she was really cute.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, I'm trying to. You did grow up with video games. That is very fun to hear because
Yes.
it is quite different for people around my generation or a little older, or like, yeah, I would say around this age group of like early 30s, that some people either grew up with video games or they did not, because when we were kids it wasn't as available. And especially for, I can of course just talk for my country where we have like gendered pronouns and everything, girls were not supposed to play video games. That wasn't necessarily a thing here. But I too grew up with video gaming, and it really, really impacted me. Would you say that gaming has impacted you creatively?
Definitely. I think my first game console was PS1, and I always, as a kid, just got better along with boys, so I would just play with the boys and play video games with them. So that kind of came naturally. And also, my mom liked video games so much. She
Oh,
was into technology and all that. So she actually introduced me to Kingdom Hearts and all that. We started playing Kingdom Hearts 1 back when it came up. I was like 7 or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was always a natural thing for me. I luckily didn't personally ever get anyone say anything weird about it
that,
because I was a girl. So yeah.
that's so lovely to hear, because I grew up with parents, especially a mom who did not like video gaming. I was threatened with getting square eyes if I looked too
Oh
much at the
no.
television and stuff like that. We had to have like designated hours I was allowed to play games, and then designated hours I had to do something else because they meant that I needed breaks. And in hindsight, that's probably healthy to not sit and play like 13 hours a day. But I am definitely the same as you in regards of being heavily influenced by video gaming. Like there's times where I wonder where I would be in my creative field today if I didn't have video games growing up. And today, like, do you play games still today?
Yeah, not as much anymore. I kind of play like fewer games more rather than new games all the time, but definitely I still love video games, especially indie games. I'm just super excited about that. Everything experimental, kind of different art styles. I love that.
Do you have some favorites you want to share?
Well, I'm really into pixel games. The game Ib, which actually had a re-release, like a remake, just lately come up, but I used to play it back in early 2000s or
Oh
something.
wow.
I actually had a small PC, like a mini laptop that has Windows Vista still, and the only purpose it has is because it has the old game file of that game, and it's the only computer that runs it, so I still keep it just for that.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That is so cool. That is something that I feel is is a generational thing, to keep things
Yeah.
still running so you can still like I have all of my old video game consoles and stuff like that. It's not like I ever bring them out all too much. And in later years, especially bigger AAA companies have been gotten better at porting titles. So especially like on the Switch today, the Nintendo Switch, you can play so many old titles. Like I grew up with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's some of those are still luckily readily available today, but it is very, very endearing to hear that you kept an old laptop with Vista alive this long.
Yeah, it's just such a shame that a lot of PC games have been kind of lost because there's just nothing that runs them anymore. And yeah, it's really good that nowadays there's more options and emulators and everything that like kind of keeps games alive longer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure, for sure. Um, in the same vein as being passionate about keeping your old PC alive, do you have any passion projects relevant to being queer?
Well, I'm pretty much always working on some projects in my mind, and all of them are relevant to that because it's um, kind of a natural part of me. So, and what I create also is just naturally going to include that. And I haven't been able to actually finish any projects or start them because it's just difficult making a living as an artist. You're just pretty much hustling commissions and work and
Yeah,
trying to get out some personal pieces as you can. There's not really time for like big personal projects that would take probably years to complete or at least many months because you
yeah,
can't just take off work time off work. So it's
gosh.
difficult, but I have many in my mind that I hope to one day create if I get the time and money and all that. You know, if I win the lottery and stuff.
Oh, you're touching on such like a core issue for so many creatives where you're like,
Yeah, for sure.
I need the day to have 35 or more hours, please, because there's just not enough time to both hustle, because that is such a key feature of being an artist today. I feel like it's just constantly you feel like you're almost sitting there on your hands and knees like, please hire me, I just need to eat, I need to pay my phone. But you also need, it's so important to get that time to just create that little piece that makes you happy about being an artist still.
Yeah, for sure it is. It's a balance because if you burn out from art completely, then obviously you can't get your work done either, and it's going to suffer, and you're going to see it in the customer work as well that you're not being able to put all of yourself into it. So it's definitely important to try and keep the balance. It's just it's really hard when it's hard to, even if you're doing it full time and don't
Mm.
really take a lot of time off, it's still hard to be able to pay all your bills and everything these days. So
It
it's a
really
struggle.
is. It is, and it makes me sad to hear that other creatives have it the same, but also this weird kind of kinship. Like it really is a universal issue that most of us face if we haven't either somewhat cracked the code. Because some people are, and I say this with just big admiration and not a snippet of like dislike or disdain. Some people just crack the code in a way of how to hustle and how to hit like a niche market that really pays well. But for the rest of us, it really feels like we're just waiting around in the dark, just desperately trying to latch onto something that will give us at least a somewhat stable income for some amount of time.
Yeah, it's a struggle, and I feel like a lot of people also have this um, image that popular artists online somehow make like a lot of money or something.
Yes.
It's even though artists are like on Twitter or Tumblr are unfortunately not like famous Twitch streamers that have sponsorships or anything. It's you don't become a millionaire by just being like an artist. You don't really even make a livable wage a lot of the time, unfortunately. But I've noticed there's this kind of attitudes about it. I personally gotten messages about people just like, "Hey, give me some money. You probably have a lot of money," and I'm like, I really don't. I'm sorry, I
Oh
really
my
don't.
god, that's wild. Oh my god. It's it's very fitting that you touch upon this because I have several friends and mutuals where we can weekly meet up and just yell into the void about how annoying social media is in that way, where it paints this. I don't even know where people started getting this misconception that big numbers on social media equates big wallet. And I wonder if it has to do with, for example, YouTube, where views equates money. So if you accumulate enough views, enough interaction on your pieces on YouTube, then you of course earn more and more money because that's how video services work. But that couldn't be further from the truth on stuff like Twitter, because I have several friends and mutuals who have like several tens and thousands of followers, and they are super hustling to get people to even just check out their Patreons. They are like earning next to nothing on Patreon because just because they have 60,000 followers on Twitter, those 60,000 people aren't running over to Patreon to make sure that they can keep doing what they love.
Yeah, it's really exposure mostly what it does, it gets you jobs.
Yeah.
So then you do those jobs to get money. And it's obviously it's even harder if you're struggling to get jobs because you don't get any visibility at all. But it's definitely not like free money. You get jobs and then you have to do those jobs to get the money. So it's a struggle. I do think it's definitely other kinds of platforms probably creating that, streaming websites, YouTube. I think TikTok people also make a lot of money. I don't have TikTok myself, but I've heard that I've heard that TikTokers are like all really rich and stuff.
Maybe that's the same lie as Twitter.
Maybe
they're not rich at all.
Maybe it is, but I think there's some way to monetize it because there's some rich TikTokers, obviously not like the average TikToker, but I think there's some way to make money from there. Actually, maybe there's a way to make money on Twitter that we just haven't discovered.
Yeah, that's what it makes me think of. Like, am I just too dumb? Have I not like
Yeah,
have I not found the golden carrot on Twitter? That's just like Uncle Twitter shows up on your door with a bag of money, like, you cracked the code. Here you go. Here's your monthly wages.
Exactly. It really would be just, not to get too political here, but it would be nice if there was something like a universal money that's given to everyone just for existing, that they can keep existing without, having to fear that they are going to die on the streets if they don't hustle every day. That would be wild, and it would be amazing if, artists could have some sort of safety net to experiment more and create more, and obviously everyone. I think there would be a lot more artists if people were feeling more secure in general.
Yeah, for sure. I can also easily see the flip side of that, how that can be abused, where non-artists would get in on that thing and just get money for not doing art. But you are really touching upon something that stresses me out a whole lot, where all I want to do is art. It's my entire identity is being an artist and making art, and it's my burning passion to create. But it's also my biggest source for stress and uncertainty, because if I could just, and I don't say this flacking on other jobs, not at all, because I have nothing but insane admiration for people who can keep more, I hesitate to use the word normal, but more regular jobs, as like working in a store or working in a kindergarten or something that is more, you see more people do than being an artist, for example. And if I could just do that and obtain the same happiness as creating art, I would do that in a heartbeat, because it is so much more secure most of the time in terms of income. And it is very unfortunate that what we are good at and what we thrive at doing, and not to mention what actually makes the world more colorful and fun to be in, is one of the most ungrateful jobs to have.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, I definitely feel also really bad for a lot of people who just hate their job and they get like no money from it at all. Because it's hard enough to struggle with your bills and everything while getting to still do a job that you like. I have so much admiration for people who are able to do a job that they don't like or hate. But I really wish that they wouldn't have to do that. I just feel it's horrible.
Yeah, no, I super agree. And that's why it's difficult to say like, oh, woe is me, I'm an artist and life is difficult. But I think what I'm trying to get at is that for the end result to look so beautiful and so inviting, there is truly a lot of pain and suffering behind art.
It is. It's true. And I think that there's a lot of that people don't see that I think some people do think that it's just, you just sit on your computer and you draw things you like and you're happy and then you get lots of money and yay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that. It's a lot of sacrifice you have to do. For me, it has definitely been, art has been my whole life. I've given up a lot of things, pretty much everything, social life and everything in a lot of points in my time life to just focus on becoming better and trying to hone my skills and trying to work on all of that. So it's definitely not something that I would like recommend to someone. It's like something that you do because you just have to. You just have to do that. You can't live any other way if you really go into it like that. I know there's a lot of people who work for industry kind of art jobs where they kind of have a more similar work-life balance as other jobs that you're not that deeply into. But I feel as a freelancer, especially as a beginner, to get there, you kind of just have to have this insane passion for it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I would probably not recommend anyone to pursue art unless you are looking at the big fat caveat that is it comes with a lot of challenges. And of course you can apply that to so much in life, especially niche niche jobs, but there is just this mentality in society as a whole that art is underappreciated. I don't think I'm going too far out of line to say that art really is underappreciated and I think social media has really been a big enemy there in terms of the speed at which we are supposed to perform now. Because I always say this, that social media isn't made for artists. It's made for bloggers and stuff like that. And I don't say that with disdain for bloggers. I just say that it is undeniably easier to photograph your breakfast and publish that than create a intricate art piece. And it is quite saddening to just see how common art is treated when it is something so special and beautiful and personal to everyone who makes it.
Yeah, and I think it's a common experience also for artists to have in their personal lives people not appreciating it. Family members telling you that you should get a real job and go into a school that's not for art, for something else. Stop wasting your money and time and everything. So it definitely is both on a societal and personal level still in a lot of ways not treated as a job in the same way as some other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you sometimes think that, well, I'm not gonna sit here and assume that I know you very well as a person, but just like generalizing artists, I know that a lot of us struggle with that feeling of worth because of many different impacts in our life. And do you feel like your entire sanity and well-being would be more stable if you weren't an artist?
Really hard because on one way, absolutely, but on the other way, I feel like a lot of my self-worth is tied so tightly into art that I would be a different person in a lot of ways if I never became an artist. And I feel like taking it out of me right now would just like rip half of me away. So, and I feel like that's also not a very healthy thing. You shouldn't tie your self-worth into art, but it's really hard not to when it's your whole life.
It absolutely is. I actually had a similar conversation with one of the other guests where I said that it's, for me, that's impossible to separate because I am my art and my art is me because my art is so deeply personal. So when people say that, like, you shouldn't tie yourself to your art, if I didn't, my art wouldn't be my art. I would create like industrial impersonal works that didn't mean anything to me. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the art that I create.
Yeah, I really feel that. Yeah, I do think it's kind of a trade-off you do, and I wouldn't want my art to be any other way. It's the way that it has to be, and I'm the way that I have to be to make it. So it is what it is.
I think that is a somewhat beautiful approach, though, to just be like, it kind of like, it is what it is, and if it wasn't, me and my art wouldn't be the way it is. And I know that I've already been gushing so much about your art, but your art is truly beautiful, so at least for what it's worth, I'm very glad that you're still making art and that you're making it the way you do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely going to continue. I've been this way my whole life. I don't think I'm going to change.
Okay, to round it off though, if you could go back in time and speak with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
I don't really have any amazing advice. I really just would like to like pat her on the head and be like, it's gonna be okay. I feel like that's a thing that a lot of queer kids would have needed, at least of like my time. Just knowing that all the things that you're anxious about and feel so unsure of, and everything's so messy and you don't understand anything and you're worried that you're going to be alone forever and all that, it's just like, it's gonna be okay. It's all gonna start making more sense and you're going to feel better. And it's like a journey forever. I'm sure we all keep learning more about each other and ourselves all the time, but it does get easier than when you're a confused kid.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very sweet. All right. Do you have any last things you wish to put out there before we head off?
uh Not really. This was really nice. I was a lot less nervous than I thought I would be. Probably because I'm not watching the stream or anything. I'm just pretending that I'm talking on Discord call here. That's just us here. No one else. All good. But yeah, it was really nice talking about all these things.
I'm so glad when you reached out. I was very happy. It's
Good.
I I made that tweet that you responded to, and I had already reached out to a couple of people that I knew or knew of. But I was very happy when a couple of people like yourself reached out on your own initiative, because I obviously don't really know you that well. So I wouldn't have asked you because I didn't want to make assumptions and I didn't want to be too forward. So I was very happy that you took the initiative despite being like nervous and everything. I think that's very big of you. I'm super happy.
Great. That's it's really cool too. Like, it's always so great to talk to other artists, especially and other queer people just in general, because especially I feel like artists, we're very easily kind of isolate because it's work that we often do on our own. So it's always great to just, connect with other artists.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for joining me. I super
Thank you.
appreciate it, and happy Pride.
Yes, same to you and everyone. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me here.
Of course, it was my pleasure, and I'll catch you around.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Alrighty, chat. Alrighty, tidy. That's gonna be it. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, take care of yourself, love one another, and I'll see you guys around. Bye.